Throughout history, the men and women who lead us with new concepts, new ideas, help us all to move forward in thought toward brighter tomorrows. And now, meetings with remarkable people with your host, Jesse Sterling.
Hi, thank you so much, dear viewer, for watching and tuning in. My name is Jesse Sterling. I'm here in the high Himalayas of India, and I'm so lucky to have on the show today meditation teacher, and her specialty is teaching meditation to children, Shelley Astrof. Thank you for doing the show.
Thank you so much, Jesse. It's just wonderful to be here, and I just wanted to mention something about how I became involved in writing this book.
Sure.
Because I had been a teacher for many years in Montreal in both the public and private sectors, and then I went on to graduate school. And at some point, I thought I was going to quit graduate school, and my guru, Swami Sham, sent me a telegram. Back in those days, we didn't have the kind of communications that we have now.
Sounds very exotic to today's generation, a telegram.
Very exotic. So I remember I went in on Friday, and I told the secretary that I had to quit the program because I had to go out and work. And Saturday morning, I got a telegram from my guru, and it said, "A perfectionist finishes the task only for knowing that he's perfect and no gain. Thus, continue studies and finish." And I thought, uh-oh, here I go. I went into the curriculum department at McGill on Monday morning, and the secretary said to me, "I'm so glad you're here. I did not tell Dr. Haworth that you were resigning. I only told her that you needed some financial assistance." And I walked in, and I had an RA job, a TA job, like a research assistant, a teaching assistant, and I was given a full professorship to go to northern Quebec, the James Bay region, and do full Bachelor of Education curriculum courses to the Cree Native people up along the bay.
Well, that's very cool of McGill University.
And I got an office. And so not only did I get to continue my studies, but I did quite well.
Doesn't it seem like that in life, that sometimes things just seem like they're meant to happen and you just go flow with the river of life? Absolutely.
I know that every time education has just been what I've needed to do. It's filled me, and I feel like I've filled it. Because I even worked on film sets in Montreal, taking care of the children who, in their contracts, they had to, they kept their studies up, so they'd bring their books and stuff from their schools, and I would sit with them, and on their breaks I took care of them and did their lessons. I've had a very interesting career through education and meditation, but I have to say my first experience with meditation in children, I was teaching grade 2 in Montreal, and at that time, it was the 70s, and meditation was not something people were very familiar with. And we had a school psychologist, so I remember I booked him to come in 3 days a week, and we did meditation together with the children. And the most amazing thing was that the children became so quiet and so calm, and they were not normally like that, that when the meditation was over, and he did a bit of a study on it, because we did it Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and we didn't do it Tuesday, Thursday, so we wanted to see how they would be at the times. And after the meditation, the children were so quiet, they didn't want to do anything. So I always did penmanship, because they didn't kind of they wanted to do something, but they weren't ready to read, and they weren't ready to get up and jump around, and they just weren't ready to do much, but they loved to sit down and I think that year those children had the best penmanship I've ever seen.
They had that focus.
They had that focus.
Sanyam coming out of meditation.
Absolutely. For myself, I've always thought of meditation and writing.
Right.
So for many years, I've collected stories, and everything for me came together where I developed a curriculum, because that was my area of study. I had become a curriculum specialist. And I thought, wouldn't it be nice to have a full curriculum that a teacher could pick up? It's something I would have loved to have, that you can just take it off the shelf and you can sit down and boom, you have like months of topics, and certainly each topic here could go on for a month.
Right.
With the material that's in there. So it's such that the first part of the book is called Curriculum and Instruction, and that has the 5 subjects that are taught in the book. The first subject is called The Play of Philosophy, Darshan, or Direct Experience. And it talks about the mind in terms of it being a mechanism that changes, the knower as that which doesn't change and watches who you are and is always there, and meditation, which is that process that brings the intelligence of the person to know who they are. And then the next chapter is called is Pranayama, the play of breath. Pranayama is about the power that moves the breath, and in the way that you can, when something happens and your breath goes, you could get excited and your breath kind of goes fast and out of control, or when you're really calm, it goes quiet. In the same way that happens to you, you can control your breath so that you can make yourself calm.
Right, it's the one thing everybody does involuntarily, but we can
Exactly.
flip the script and control our breathing.
Exactly. And the breathing is connected to your thinking process. So as you calm yourself down, you actually start to think more clearly. So that's pretty nice. So that's the second subject in the book.
My teacher, I remember, once did a pranayama exercise with me that was so beautiful. He used his hand and just full breath in, full breath out, and then back up, 90% in, 90% out, till after a couple minutes, barely moving the hand, and it felt like barely needed to breathe, and the calmness that then permeated the room was just incredible. So pranayama works. It's a very ancient science.
Absolutely. Absolutely works. And then there's mantra, the play of sound. And mantra is, I have a selection of Sanskrit mantras and ways to pronounce them. And they do.
And what is Sanskrit for our viewers that might not know that word?
Sanskrit is an ancient language that many of the ancient scriptures of India have been written. And so
It's supposed to be the original language, right? Or
It
the
is
pure
said-
sounds from the divine.
it is absolutely said that it is the language or the alphabet of the divine.
Right. So maybe a dead language now and that no culture uses it, but it's almost like Latin. It's a very ancient, very mystical language that a lot of future tongues were based on.
Absolutely. And what's nice is there's a revival of Sanskrit now, which is really, really nice. And they say like Om.
So Om would be Sanskrit.
Om would be Sanskrit. And the interesting thing about that one mantra is that it's said to encompass the entire alphabet of Sanskrit because it begins with the ah and goes their final sound would be ma. So it's Om.
Om.
So when you come to the end, you have every single word that you could possibly say is inside that one sound.
Right.
And that brings the peace of who you are.
You know, I always have thought, I've also heard it called the unstruck sound, or if you put
Yes.
all the sounds together, that's the noise that would be created. there's this interesting line in the Christian Bible that says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And I always thought maybe that word is Om. It's the same kind of philosophy, that it all started, this big bang, if you want to call it, this explosion of the world of things and forms and sounds and sights. Maybe all did start with that one Om. So this incredible book that you've written, it's this curriculum, the Knower curriculum, Teach Meditation to Children with Timeless Tales. You've talked about philosophy, we've talked about breathing, we've talked now about sound and mantra. What is the next 2 chapters?
The next chapter is Hatha Yoga.
Hatha Yoga.
Because when you develop a curriculum, you want to have like the cognitive, which is like the development of their mind. You want to develop the spirit, and you want to develop their body. So you want them to be able to take the physical energy that they have and channel it into...
They have a lot of energy.
Oh, they have a lot. So we have Hatha Yoga poses that help the children to align the energy of their bodies so that they could sit in meditation. And you know, I mean, kids are always going to get into trouble and have fun. But this is I mean, they're just great fun things, and they will go with the stories. And the final chapter is, I called it Karma Yoga, but it's all games and activities. And I have used every single one of them in different classroom settings. And what they are things that will develop children. They'll develop different skill sets. One might be coordination. One might be how to cooperate with people, how to work independently, how to think things through. And
life skills, basically, you're building up.
They're absolutely life skills. And so every single aspect of the first part of the book comes into play in the second part of the book, which is the implementation of those 5 subjects. So I selected 9 stories that have 9 very specific themes, and so a teacher can read the story, and then they have how to have discussions. And I always have dictionary words, like the pertinent words that children should know, so they can develop their language skills, and you just come to know what these words mean. And then maybe some colloquial expressions that are there. And then a meditation, or a selection of meditations that will be according to the story. So you could bring in, like there's this story about fox and camel, and how, so the meditation would be about how you deal with your friends, and it would be that kind of a meditation, how you're leading your attention in that way. And then I'll have, so that whole first part would deal with chapter 1, and then the next selection of activities would be pranayama. And I'd say why I've selected that particular breath exercise for that story. And if you forgot how to do it, you just go to the first part of the book and you see how it goes. Because there's a part in that particular story where the fox likes to sing her morning song, and that gets her friend into trouble. So one of the pranayama exercises...
Yeah, you can't tease us with fox and camel and not tell us the story. Viewers need to know about fox and camel now. Will you tell us about the story?
Fox and camel...
Reader's Digest version.
The Reader's Digest version is, there's a fox and a camel who become friends. And they become friends because they live in the forest and nobody else is there. So they became friends just because they were there. And fox is very clever, and camel is a little more the type who likes to go along with their friend. So Fox wants to figure out how he's going to get a ride on Camel's back. So he gets him to take him across the river by promising him that a farmer's garden with lots of delicious things to eat lay there. So Fox gets on Camel's back, they cross the river, and they go and they eat all the cucumbers in the garden. And then as soon as Fox is finished, Fox says, I'm all finished. I need to sing my morning song. And Camel's going, you can't do that. You're going to get me into trouble. You'll wake the farmer. And Fox goes, but it's what I do. It's my habit pattern. I always sing after I eat.
Right.
So Fox sings her morning song and runs away, and the farmer comes and beats up Camel. And then Camel goes back to the riverbed and waits for his friend. But while he's waiting, he sits down and he thinks about all the things that happened. That he told his friend not to sing the song, and friend sang anyway, and how he's always getting into all kinds of trouble, and now what to do. So he meets up with his friend, and his friend says, well, how did you fare? And he's all black and blue, and he goes, I got beaten up because, you said you got the farmer to come. Anyway, they make up, and then they start to cross the river, and Fox is on Camel's back, and Camel has decided that he's going to plan his revenge. And he says, Fox, I also have an urge. And Fox goes, what do you mean you have an urge? What kind of urge do you have? And he said, I have an urge to take a bath. He said, what do you mean take a bath? And he said, I cannot resist my urge. And he leans back, and poor little Fox has to swim across all by herself. And the way the story ends is that they built a little picket fence in the forest, and they live side by side. But the thing about the story is not about what happens necessarily between friends, because that always happens. But it's really about throwing away all those thoughts and ideas that get you into trouble. Mm-hmm. And so
discernment.
Exactly. And it's meant to teach the children that it's what's going on inside of you, because you always have a fox and a camel in you. Mm. One day you're fox and one day you're camel, and that can switch a lot. Mm-hmm. And so you really have to know how to take care of yourself and how to bring a kind of balance into your own life by knowing that certain aspects and certain thoughts and certain things get you into trouble, and maybe you shouldn't do that, because Camel knew what was right and what was wrong, or what would get them into trouble and what wouldn't, but never trusted themselves. So that's kind of what that story is about.
It reminds me of that song by The Verve in terms of personality changing. They have this great line in Bittersweet Symphony, I'm a million different people from one day to the next.
Yes.
And every human being is like that. We have these minds that are constantly changing.
Absolutely. And that's actually the whole point of the book, is that you recognize that your mind is constantly changing, and that it's okay to change, because as you get more information, your mind will change because you find out something else, and so you need to assimilate that into the information that you already have. So it's always okay for your mind to change. But then the next step is, inside, there's one who watches that, and that doesn't change. And if you can...
That's knower, as you called it.
That
and everyone
is the
has
knower.
a knower. Yeah.
Everyone is their knower. It's not even that they have their knower. They come to know that they are their knower, and they have their mind.
My grandfather, Jeff Sterling, as a young kid, often taught me about this knower, about this inner voice inside yourself. And there's a quote by Thoreau, most men lead lives of quiet desperation. And it's because they haven't listened to their inner self. And the fun part is, the more you listen to this inner voice that leads you on the right path, the stronger it gets.
Absolutely.
You can deny it, you can rationalize anything. My grandfather used to joke, I just have one wish, just to take away the ability to rationalize, because am I going to have that extra cookie? Am I going to sleep in that extra hour? Or I am going to live up to my higher self? And
Yes.
it'll give you the right information. And then
Yes.
that little tiny whisper, the more you follow it, becomes this commanding voice that's a pleasure to follow.
Yes.
And
yes.
instead of being a victim of your thoughts and in the hand of your mind's every whim, it's the opposite. You have your mind in your own hands. You become a mastermind.
Exactly, exactly. That is what this whole program is meant for. It is meant for each child to come to be the master of their own mind, of their own destiny, of their own abilities, that they can enhance who they are and become the very best version of who they are. And isn't that a great thing?
It's
That
a
you
wonderful
can-
opportunity. Free will is an amazing gift we've been given.
Yes, and when a child can come in touch with that knower, that center of themselves, then that can lead their mind to the actions and the way and their behaviors that will always serve them in their whole life. It's about knowing what's good for you. You know, just because everybody is having strawberry milkshakes, if you're allergic to strawberries, don't drink it.
Right.
It's great for them, but it might not be great for you. And that's the knower that's always telling you. The knower will always be for your benefit. And that is what this whole system is about, is that everyone, if you come to know inside of yourself what makes you tick, then you will always be your very best self, and you will be your authentic self. And what else could be better than that?